It's time for the Albion Mag Radio Show. Well, a very good morning on a very wet, drizzly, awful day here in Brighton. You're listening to the Albion Mag Radio Show with myself, Dean, and Leon Cox in the studio.
Good morning.
How you doing,
You
mate?
know it's bad when the dogs are looking at their owners like, why have you taken me out in this? Like, you
You're
are
talking
nuts.
about the animals, right?
Yes. Yes, on my way here, I noticed at least 3 dogs who were just giving their owners that pitiful, bedraggled, tousled look. Like, I was perfectly happy indoors. Thanks very much.
Cheers. Thanks for that. But it's that time, isn't it? Time of year for buying Christmas trees and stuff, the 1st of December, Christmas season.
I suppose so.
Time to be jolly. Unless we talk about last week, I suppose.
Yeah.
We'll get onto that later. Loads to talk about. Loads of things happened this week. Not necessarily all Albion related, but certainly on a wider conversation, definitely football related. We've got previews to, as we've put on our Twitter poll, possibly the biggest week of the season, which we'll get to. And of course, we've got a special guest. Flevens will be joining us. He's a Huddersfield fan. Well, don't take that against him, but he's from our friends at Jalapeno Records, and we very much look forward to having him, and we'll be, as the young ones say, dropping a couple of his tunes later on.
That was his latest track.
There you go. That's his latest. See, we've had him in the last show. We're going to have him in this show.
Beautiful.
So, looking forward to that one. I suppose we should start with our Twitter poll that we've put out. We've got, obviously, Huddersfield away today. Those shall not be named, Crystal Palace, Tuesday nights.
Oh, yeah.
Is this, for you, the biggest week?
No.
There you go.
I don't think you can say until the end of the season what was the biggest. It's a hindsight thing, isn't it? But if you're saying, is it our biggest week of the season up until now? Well, again.
Well, then you're going to make the argument that every week is the biggest week.
Yeah, and we had that pretty much. 2 weeks where we won 3 games in a row. That was quite big. So I don't know. I get very tired, as I've said before, with the whole every game is a must-win game scenario, and it's actually there are very few absolutely must-win games in football. Is it a big? It's a big week. It would certainly be one that we'll be looking to get a minimum of 2 or 3 points out of. But if we end up losing both of these games, a tricky one away at Huddersfield and a home tie against our local rivals, who just seem to be maybe finding a little bit of form, I don't think we just throw in the towel at that point and say, well, we've blown it, we're down.
No, I just think that when you look at the fixtures, because I try to looking at all of the fixtures coming up over the rest of the season, and I don't think there's a week, well, there isn't another week where there are 2 games with teams fighting for the same aspirations as we are, in terms of being safe first and foremost, and then anything above that's a bonus, which we'll get to in a minute in terms of why I've said that statement. But in realistic terms, the primary objective, stay in the league.
Yes.
Secondary objective, get as high as we can in the table. That's been the case last year, it's the case this year. And we've got 2 teams that have that same aspiration and goal. Crystal Palace fans may argue that theirs is slightly higher, but for the last however many seasons, they've been in exactly the same position as we're in. For whatever players they've got, they're still, this season they've struggled, lose a lot of games. So
yes, they tend to do things in a slightly more bipolar fashion, where it tends to be either all amazing or all
Jekyll
terrible.
or Hyde.
Yeah, Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing. Whereas we're a little bit more steady Eddie for the most part, although obviously like all teams we have runs of poor and better form. It's a big week, but we play everyone twice. We get to play everyone we haven't played yet again. So, and
bizarrely, we are playing those 2 teams in the reverse order back to back, which I don't think normally happens.
No, there have been. I've never been. I find whatever the fixtures computer algorithm is, it's a very mysterious and confusing thing, and there is human intervention at both ends. Obviously, garbage in, garbage out. The algorithm is human designed. There have been seasons, I think, where you get this odd mirroring of fixtures. I think there have been times where they've tried to sort of almost do the whole season kind of mirrored, or where the second half almost relates exactly to the first half. But these days it tends to be a bit more all over the place, especially now we have games on every day of the week, pretty much, don't we?
Pretty
Except
much.
Thursdays.
Well, Europa League.
I mean, in the Premier League,
yeah.
I think Thursday's the only day you wouldn't, unless it's like a bank holiday or something, a Christmas, New Year type scenario. But you can now, like we had a Friday night game last night. How many fantasy Premier League players, myself included, did that catch out? I suddenly heard Sandy, my partner, put the TV on and I heard Gary Neville's voice, and I immediately knew if Gary Neville's on, that means there's a Premier League game on, and it's 7:31 and I haven't done my fantasy team. So shout out to all those fantasy league managers who have forgotten to update their team. It's too late now, you've missed the deadline.
I don't worry about it. I've put my team in.
My team's looking all right.
Mine's not, and I'm happy with that. Yeah, I've made my choice at the start of the season. I thought if it's good enough at the start of the season, it's
we should give you one of my league codes so we can stack
maybe
up. Next
season when I feel a better team. So I'll go back to the statement where I said that our primary objective is to stay in the league, and our second objective is to then finish as high as we can.
Yes.
And a story came out in the press this week about Brighton fans' expectations, which we've alluded to over the last couple of weeks, but it kind of put things in a bit more of a realistic expectation for us, maybe. Would you agree? For those of you that are what's he talking about? It's the annual average salary spend for each club, and the results, if that was a league table, and quite often the league table does mirror that spend
fairly closely,
relatively closely. There's a few exceptions, but Brighton and Hove Albion are one of the lowest spenders in the league,
16th,
and would just finish outside the playoff places,
relegation places.
Yes,
Sorry,
just above playoff places. Where am I?
We would just survive narrowly, yes, if they stacked it up on order of wage bill. And of course, football is more complicated than that in some ways, but in other ways,
not really.
It not so much.
You pay the best players. The best players come to you. In theory, you should win.
Yeah,
in theory.
And I think it is easy to get impatient. And I think even though I was, although I haven't heard it back, I was happy with what I said about last week and the rumblings of discontent. And I was trying to vocalise how I feel as a positive but quite moderate and thoughtful fan, that I understand some of the frustration with some of the football and some of the performances and some of the results. However, I felt like we were underselling ourselves in terms of our own mindset going into certain games. And as such, we are currently, literally, we are a mid-table Premier League side. And it would be nice, I said, I think, along these lines, if we went into games playing that way.
Yep.
But actually, you look at the numbers and we are still, as we did probably by a place or two last season, maybe even more so, overachieving as it stands. So it's not as clear-cut as if we finish 17th or below, obviously relegated.
Well, hopefully not.
18th, 19th, 20th. But it's not as clear-cut as Houghton is therefore failing and he should be fired. And nor is it as simple as we are currently in 12th and we finished 15th, 16th last season. 15th, I think.
15th, yeah.
And therefore he overachieved and he should be ascend to God status.
Well, yes, and also likewise, if the club went and spent an inordinate amount of money on players and player wages, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that we'll.
No, it certainly doesn't, and that was one of the things that we've always been very guarded against and fearful of, that we follow the appalling route that the likes of Leeds and Portsmouth and all these other teams that shot themselves in the foot and almost cost themselves their club did.
Yeah.
We also know, as the stats that have come out from 16-17, obviously these stats will have changed, the percentages have changed, but Tony Bloom was responsible for 28% of the money on a personal level that went into the club in the last championship season. And obviously that was prior Premier League broadcast rights money, but again, anyone who has that attitude of Bloom's taken us as far as we can go or whatever, we wouldn't. Yeah, doesn't even enter into the equation.
No, not at all.
Absolutely, he's backed us to the hilt, and now he's in a situation where he's continuing to back us. Like, yes, we haven't spent 30, 40 million on a player yet, but in terms of the overall spend.
But I don't think that would help, and I don't think necessarily there'd be that player of that calibre that would be the right fit for the club.
Well, indeed, yeah.
Necessarily. I mean, I could be wrong.
There have been. There was another article I read this week. Can't credit the source, unfortunately, but talking about how we need to. We are looking to get a bit more from our summer signings.
Understandably.
And we are still relying on, while it's a massive compliment to the Championship team that took us up, we are still very much heavily relying along with two of last season's signings, particularly Gross and Proper, especially.
Who we've missed
badly.
Badly, yeah.
This season's signings haven't been able to bed in. Again, you can say, well, maybe that's partly the responsibility of the manager for not having got the blend right yet. But maybe we haven't recruited the right players. I think only time will tell still. We've certainly got our doubts about some of them. Licardi, who came last January, I think it's still too early to dismiss last summer's signings. It's still only November.
Well, I think if you want inspiration, you only need to look at Mr. Sissoko, who was an absolute deadbeat for 3 years, and now all of a sudden is a hero over in North London.
Pochettino's worked out what to do with
That's
him.
it.
Yeah.
So trust in Houghton, and he'll get the best. He will get the best out of those players, or they will move on.
Yeah, patience is required. That's the key thing. And as I say, I almost feel slightly guilty that almost maybe I got sucked into the trap of just thinking, right, we've been here a year and a bit now. Come on, let's kick on. But actually, we're playing a longer game than that. We can't expect to. I know some teams do, and obviously we're going to look at the likes of Bournemouth and Watford, but they've been up. But then that extra
Bournemouth,
couple of years
for themselves, we use them as an example. They did struggle there or thereabouts at the bottom of the league for the first 3 seasons. It's this season that's been their breakout. It's their 4th year. Burnley, they've had a what you'd call a blip season last season by being so good last season and getting the results, whereas normally they've been around this end of the table where they're at. So I think that you've got to be cautious of having that instant one season of getting to that 7th, 8th place, because what inevitably normally follows is a drop down, unless you're Watford, where you'll start every season really well and then time will tell.
February,
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and it does come back. And again, I think we've said this before, and there's a certain amount of the narrative which continues and returns, but we've got a lot of young fans, a lot of new fans, and they've been pretty much, although we were a Championship side, they've been pretty much spoilt by the previous seasons, where it just seems like supporting Brighton is just nothing but joy and laughs and larks and
watching
victories.
A team that wins it. Yeah, watching a team that wins most weeks. Yeah,
so it is a bit of a culture shock. And for those of us who have been around the block a few times, we know we knew what to expect. That said, I don't think it is only the younger, naive fans who are the biggest moaners. I think some football fans are just massive moaners, and they will never be content with whatever the situation is. You
can win the league, but what about that goal we conceded? And
yeah, they'll still find something to moan about. And whatever was happening 5 years ago will always be. I mean, this is a malaise that I think is across society, probably around the world as well, which is whatever was happening at a time when you were personally happier 5 or 10 years ago, everything was brilliant then. And actually, if you went back there, you'd probably remember loads of stuff that you thought was you'd like to change to the way it is now. And we have a strange way of
rose-tinted glasses. Is that the
rose-tinted
phrase?
spectacles?
Yeah.
Definitely, yes.
Yes. So the final point of that conversation is actually we're still, current form aside, we're still in essence overachieving. In theory,
in numerical fiscal terms, certainly. And as I've said many times, my dream, and I know this would be laughable to the likes of Manchester United fans, who we're not that far behind in the league, by the way, is to finish 12th. Like, if we finish 12th, I'll be ecstatic, because it will be the club's best ever season as a professional football club.
Yep.
And I'll have been there watching it as a season ticket holder. That would be, if we finish where we are now, even if it's been frustrating and difficult at times and whatever, then I'll be absolutely overjoyed with a 12th place finish.
There you go.
Don't care if anyone feels otherwise.
I don't describe. I get where you're coming from, and I think that's because you've lived that journey for X years.
35.
Yes,
thereabouts.
That is a level of achievement and attainment which was unthinkable for the majority of it.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, as I've said before, for those who don't listen regularly, I started going after we got relegated from the top flight last time. Our best season was in the late 70s, where we finished 13th when I was 7 years old. Don't really remember it. And so, yeah, ever since then, it's been strife mainly. So
here we are.
Here we are
now. One other there's a couple of other talking points. Which one to go to next? The one I'll go to next is we mentioned it last week about the golden payout, golden handshake, however you want to think, Scudamore. And someone at the club, Mr. Barber, wrote a little essay in the programme.
It's not gone down very well.
No,
in all circles.
The Guardian,
Marina Hyde,
wrote an article. She didn't have too many nice things to say.
Pulled him apart, really.
Literally did pull him apart
for his corporate sort of slightly mealy-mouthed businessman. Oily speak. Yeah, this is the less likable side of Barber. Like we know who he is and what he is, and we didn't actually mention the fact that his role has now officially changed. He recently gone from CEO to, was it? Oh,
I can't remember the official
deputy secretary or something. No, deputy. I can't remember. Anyway, it just goes to show how important it is. But it seems to be more of because there have been rumours that the FA were wanting him. Yeah. It seemed to be more of a cementing him at the club, and I was pleased because I think for all his corporate modern football slickness, I think he's extremely good at what he does, and I think you whether you like it or not, you do need a figure of that nature at the club. But this was him showing the side of him that isn't in touch with the fans.
So I'll take a direct quote from Mr. Barber. This is an entirely normal contractual agreement for very senior and highly sought after executives. And it has been designed by the Premier League board to protect the league's commercial interests and those of its shareholders, including our club, with an exclamation mark at the end.
Yes.
So he's saying from a corporate point of view, that's normal in the business world, which we did touch upon last week.
And we said it's actually small beans compared to what we're getting out of being in the Premier League.
But here's the retort that came out. Paul, ? Take your jaunty little exclamation mark and do one. There's a good chap. As the Football Supporters Federation put it when the initial news broke, it appears clubs can stick their hands down the back of the sofa and find £250,000 at a moment's notice. Fans strongly opposed to the golden handshake, and we urge clubs not to make a decision which is hugely unpopular with supporters.
Yeah.
Which does take the feeling of the majority of football fans around the country.
I mean, I really like Marina Hyde. I think she's great. I think she's a fantastic journalist. She's obviously feels passionately about this, and I can't disagree. I'm not going to blindly defend the club on all matters. I think
the thing is that we can see his point from a corporate point of view, but from a football fan's point of view, absolutely on board with Marina's comments as well. So.
Yeah, and that juggling act, that balancing act between the corporate and the football fan is where that is absolutely the core of what his role is. And if he's got that wrong in this case, then he's got that wrong in this case, because I understand he needs to say those things to other people in the corporate world, but these were program notes to the fans.
Yeah.
And he's talked to the fans like they're kind of, you're just little customers, you don't really understand what goes on, this is big business, just leave it to the grown-ups. It had that sort of air about it. I mean, it was only the same amount of money as we got from Coca-Cola 10 years ago. And that was worth a lot more to us then.
Yes, it was.
I think we made a profit on Colin Kazim-Richards, didn't we? So
we did. So actually,
we definitely did, because if we sold him for anything,
Coca-Cola money's done us all right.
Yeah, that was the start. Colin Kazim-Richards would probably claim that his purchase and then sale was the start of Brighton and Hove Albion's resurrection. if what I've heard about him is true.
Maybe. Just a reminder, you can get in touch with us on the show at TAM Radio Show on Facebook or Twitter. We've got our Twitter poll up, running for about another 15 minutes or so. And the question is simply, looking ahead to Huddersfield away and Palace at home, is this the most important week in the Albion season? Leon thinks no. I think yes.
57% of fans who have expressed a preference agree with you at the moment.
Plenty of time to change that, though. 15 minutes or so. I think that's about right. Was there 17 minutes? I can't remember when I've said it to end now. I think it was about 30 minutes past. Anyway, moving on.
Let's not get bogged down in the details.
No, I know. What a ridiculous. Move on with the show. I'm going to move on to the homophobia bit momentarily, because we do need to get the Leicester game out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. We've got the actual football to discuss as well. Now, I admit I was on my way up to another game, and I caught the first half intermittently, and I was like, yeah, this one's put to bed, comfortable. I got off the tube at the other end. The second half had been played, and well, I've seen the highlights since. But what happened? I mean, from my point of view, it looked like a complacency which I've not seen, a lack of effort. Maybe not a lack of effort,
no.
But from the highlights, it was a very lethargic second half performance.
I don't think we knew how to respond to their changes, the changes that they made. The first half an hour, I've got to say, or thereabouts, was the best we've played, I think, for well over a month. Proper and Gross back in the team looked absolutely integral again. We had that swagger about us, and we played. Do you remember I was saying that I didn't want us to go into this game looking like the away side?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I wanted us to go into this game looking like this was a team that was directly above us in the table, and who we could go above by beating. Forget their recent title winning and antics and all that kind of thing. Just Brighton versus Leicester. It's a game we've played many, many times over the years. We've won a good number of them. And that was exactly how it started. I was feeling so positive after the first portion of the game. I think it didn't feel to me like complacency, although I've seen other reports from other fans which may countermand that feeling. However, I felt it was more to do with Puel's substitutions and sort of change of tack. They started really high pressing us, and we always struggled to cope with that. They hadn't really offered a lot until they started really trying to get back into it.
Do you think Vardy was the catalyst when he came on?
It's definitely a huge part of it. They didn't really threaten until Vardy came on. You could sense that there was a trepidation when he took to the field. Also, I think Proper and Gross tired because they hadn't been in full first team action for a while, so I think that was relevant. But yeah, I think Houghton does have to take some of the responsibility for lack of proactive substitutions, but I also think that people shouldn't ignore the fact that both Pascal Gross and Bruno and Houghton were all urging the team to play higher up the pitch, but of course we inevitably got sitting on the one goal, we got sucked back into defending, and it almost, even though it was a soft penalty to give away, it was irrelevant how the equaliser came. It felt like it was on the cards. Something like that was going to happen. We should have been 2-0 up. Like we had chances. We had one. Gross was onside that wasn't given, but when that decision was made, we had to then go on and actually score a legitimate goal. It's gone. We can
harbour back to a decision that's gone against you. Absolutely.
Exactly. So, yeah, it definitely 2 points dropped in the end. But actually, for the last 25 minutes, I think
was that uncomfortable?
Really uncomfortable. Yeah, I thought so. I mean, Ryan didn't have tons and tons to do, but we had enough defending to do to make it a very uncomfortable last 20 minutes or so. That said, we still could have snatched it. Of course, we inevitably had another couple of chances against a team that have been playing with 10 men for so long. So yeah, it really frustrating. And it was. There's two ways to take it. There's the encouragement from the opening half an hour to. It was a real reminder.
That's why I couldn't.
Yeah.
believe at the end of the game.
That's the Brighton and Hove Albion that we have seen in the Premier League in the Amex. And I'm not saying we were absolutely tip-top as at our very best, but it was the best we played for a while, and it shows that that's still just there waiting to be tapped into. It's not like it's gone and we are now this very scrappy 1-0 or lose team. We still have the capacity, especially at the Amex, to play some very attractive, attacking, positive, slick football. But what was worrying was that it only took circumstances for it to very quickly return to recent form of desperate defending.
And do you think that's because we're not used to playing that way for sustained periods of time? Is there an element of that we don't know how to maintain being on the front foot for 90 minutes?
I think it's so hard to say. And
of course, I'm just
mooting and supposing. But I wonder if my feeling is that because we are so coached and drilled to not concede and to understand the value of a goal, as in us scoring a goal is a huge deal. Like, we don't expect to go into games scoring 2, 3, whatever. I think that it's almost antithetical to what Houghton teaches and instills, that when we go a goal up to kick on and score that second, that I think it's so deeply ingrained in us to protect what we have, but that can translate to us sitting deeper and deeper on the pitch because we don't have that, coming back to that thing, that courage of the convictions. Leicester were there for the taking. We probably should have gone in at 2-0, come out in the second half, got another one. They might have rallied, but it would have been a very different landscape.
I think, a second goal would have completely changed it. When there's only one and you can bring on players of quality. But
again, it's fine margins. It's always fine margins.
And we both predicted a draw.
We both predicted 1-1. Leicester are a very good side. They got some really good footballers. They won a league a couple of years ago. If you'd said before the game 1-1, we did say before the game 1-1, I would have said fair enough. It's because of the circumstances, because of the 10 men, because of the fact that we took the lead, that it feels like points dropped. But at the end of the season, if we stay up, it'll just read as a 1-1 home draw against a fellow mid-table side, and it won't seem so.
And a point better off than the same game last season.
Are we?
Well, for that game, we lost to him last year. Didn't we?
Right, okay.
I'm just, just trying to take positives.
I think we need to win today to be ahead of where we were this time last season. Actually,
right.
Overall,
right.
Yes. So, but we've had different fixtures.
Yeah, different fixtures.
Yeah.
Well, just a quick thing on Maddison. I mean, he came out afterwards. He has apologised, put his hands up.
Yeah, I mean, would he have apologised if
he'd have won a penalty? Probably not.
So it sounds like his statement was very much along the lines of he'd been told the right thing to say, but it's not like he's not the only player to have done that. He is young, and it was absolutely no qualms about the red card, and nobody complained.
No, he knew straight away.
Oh yeah.
It was
yes.
Was it that obvious from the crowd?
No. It rarely is it?
Sometimes it's blatant, and sometimes
dives are hard to call from. I'm in the West Upper, and it's very like the penalty could have been a dive as well. I've got a pretty good eye for these things, although getting worse with age. But it looked a little bit like he'd over dramatised it, but equally, I've seen them given because it only takes a little bit of contact sometimes for a ref to give the penalty. So I was quite happy when the ref's arm went the other way, and then we knew exactly what was coming next.
Well, there we are. We're at the halfway mark, and the second half I'm going to tag out, and Flevins is going to take my place. He's been waiting patiently in the wings. But to get you in the mood ahead of the build to the Huddersfield game today, and of course you've got the women's, the non-league. So much still to talk about, Leon. But we'll leave you with a new tune just dropped. It's called X Factor.
Welcome back, everybody. We've what's the word? We've mounted a coup. My name's Leon. Yes, I'm back in charge. I get to do this sometimes when Dean's away. He says he's left of his own volition, but actually we've bundled him into a cupboard.
And I'm his full-time replacement.
Yeah,
so I'm pleased he's done well, but good to be here.
Hello, Flevens.
Hello.
From our favourite resident Brighton record label, Jalapeno Records.
Yep.
So for those, we've played some of your tracks before, and indeed Vision On played out with one of your tracks this morning. But for those who haven't been paying attention, how would you describe your own music?
It's probably, best described as kind of funk, soul, occasional sort of bits of kind of electronica, beats, breaks, all sorts of stuff really. But the new stuff very much in the kind of sort of modern funk, soul vein.
Nice. How long you been creating?
Oh, a long time. Yeah, I've put my first album out when I was about 24 with True Thoughts. So I've been doing stuff with Brighton labels for 15, 16 years or so.
Veteran of the industry.
Yeah, I hear that a lot now. That I'm officially termed a music veteran, which I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not, but it feels about right, that's for sure.
So are you going to be a sort of the kind of veteran who just keeps playing live, or are you going to move into the corporate world or the production?
We'll see. I mean, to be honest with you, I sort of didn't think it was going to, I've been doing it a long time, and it's actually just really picked up again these last few months, having signed to Jalapeno, obviously a long-term Brighton label. And so, next year out sort of DJing a lot more, playing live. So, we'll be giving it a good shot over the next couple of years, that's for sure.
And what's been your some of your career highlights so far?
Oh goodness me! I mean, I've been lucky enough to. I mean, I've recorded at Abbey Road, played Glastonbury.
Nice.
I've sort of as a DJ, I've toured Australia, America, been to Japan. So. Yeah, I've been lucky that I've seen some parts of the world that I probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. And yeah, I mean, it's all nice. I've just found out this morning that I'm having that new single played on Zoe Ball's show on Radio 2 this afternoon. So
awesome.
Just keep having nice little bits happening along the way, which are just as exciting as they were when I first started doing it, really. So that's a few
amazing.
Things, really.
We have Radio 2 on in our office where I work, so I'll be listening out. See if it can make the playlist.
You'll be sick of it by the end of the day.
I'm sure I'll enjoy it more than some of their heavy rotation stuff. Yeah,
to be honest, I haven't listened to the show, so I don't know. I'm going to be tuning in to hear it because it'll be a bit of a treat, but I'm not sure what to expect in terms of what else they play. So it might be a bit of an eye opener.
Yeah. So one of the reasons, the reason we've roped you in for the Albion Mag Radio show as opposed to your normal stuff is we bumped into you one morning here some months back, and as people always do, they asked us about football. You asked us, and so we politely asked back, who do you support then? And we couldn't tell from your accent, but
no,
you're a Yorkshire.
Well, yeah, my dad's was born in Huddersfield, and so I think we lived up in York for a couple of years when I was about maybe 9. So I went to my first games at the old Leeds Road. It's been in that side of the family for generations. So I became an honorary Huddersfield fan. I'm probably one of the few Huddersfield fans lurking down on the south coast. So obviously we play today, which will be very interesting.
You've had the hoodoo over Brighton in recent years. I think it's fair to say the tactics that Wagner plays do not tally well from a Brighton point of view with Houghton's tactics. They seem to, from a Huddersfield point of view, they seem to be very effective.
Yeah, I think it's a question of when they work, really, and I think that's probably why. I say from a Huddersfield point of view, it's probably a good time for us to be playing Brighton today, because I think when we're on our game and the high press and really into the biting tackles and really on the front foot, then we're capable of beating, I think, or playing well against most teams in the division. But we have looked out of sorts for a lot of this season, and I think it hasn't worked, and we haven't been pressing, and we've just started to see the last 2 or 3 games that click into place, and he's been playing 3 at the back and 2 wing backs, which has left us looking very vulnerable, but now we've started to look a lot more secure at the back as well. So I think I was trying to think back over, because I've been to most of the games at the Amex over the last few seasons, and I'm trying to think, we generally, including the last couple of championship seasons as well, I think we've had a pretty good run run against you guys. I think I'm trying to think actually if Brighton have beaten us in any of those games. There may have been one, but I think we've always at least managed to nick a point, and we've certainly had. I remember in the Championships having some of our best performances of the season against you guys. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic about today, to be honest.
Huddersfield have lost just one of their last 10 home league games against Brighton, winning 5 and drawing 4. 6 of the last 10 league meetings overall, though, have been drawn, though.
Yeah, I've certainly seen a fair few draws, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing us play Huddersfield back in the probably League One.
Yeah, I saw a couple of games at the Withdean. Yeah, it seems a while ago now.
Yeah. But, the overall head-to-head, Brighton are still in front, I think. Is that right? I'm not actually sure which way round this is, because it could be that it's 122 lost 18, or it could be 118 lost 22.
I mean, how far back are we going there?
That's
all games,
like 100,
always
100 years or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued now. We were talking earlier about the report on wages and wage structure, and how there has been a certain amount of malcontent among Brighton fans recently based on the results and performances, despite the fact that we're sitting 12th in the Premier League.
Which crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy. So, but I'm intrigued from your point of view. I know you're remote, but obviously in this online era, it must be fairly easy to get a read on what the feeling is among Huddersfield fans. What's the expectation, and how happy are they right now?
That's a good question. I think there's probably a lot of similarities. I mean, I get a lot of my information, for better or for worse, on the Huddersfield forum.
Yes.
And you know what? You're always going to have people that complain. I mean, you have a sort of certain, kind of almost the first season in the Premier League is a bit of a, it was a total novelty, but of course once you've survived that, there's then the sort of feeling of, well, we're here on merit now. There's new teams come up. I mean, I think we were spoilt last season. The first half of the season we played really fearlessly, got some amazing results, and I think to an extent this season has been probably, from my point of view, more what I expected last season to be like, tough games, and so I think generally speaking, the core of the club and core of supporters feel that we are still incredibly lucky for a team of our size and resources to be in the Premier League. I think the only thing that's been frustrating is when, not necessarily losing games, but the games where we just are not in it. There have been a few games this season where we have looked at best like a lower Championship side, League One side. We have looked, it's looked like an FA Cup, sort of game. And I think that's frustrating, because I think most people know that we are capable of better. And it was getting to a point, I think, where we needed to see a bit of turnaround in terms of our performance, and I think if it had gone on much longer, I think that sort of that unrest. I mean, I think look, we're not going to get rid of Wagner. I think everyone's really happy with what he's done. There's no sort of changing of the guard or anything like that. So I think everybody knows that it's kind of what will be. But I think the expectations were that we should at least be giving teams a bit more of a game. And last 3 or 4 games, I mean, we've had some good performances even in the games we've lost, but in part I would say we've had a lot of good first half, second half here and there, but not consistently through games. And I think last few games we've started to show that we can maintain that for whole games, and I think that's what we want to see. So people are sort of pleasantly optimistic at the moment, I think. So I
think it's definitely a case of grass is always greener in terms of the performances, because in those games where Huddersfield haven't really been in it, perhaps Huddersfield has still been trying to play their way and looking out of it outclassed, whereas we've had these games where our fans have got frustrated because we've been so defensive and dour and resolute, but actually if you'd swap those performances, the results might have been the same, but maybe there would have been slightly different response to it.
Yeah, it's a no-win situation, isn't it? Really, I think. As I say, I haven't caught. I mean, obviously, I'll get to watch the highlights and bits of those, but I haven't caught sort of too many whole Brighton games. So it's a bit difficult for me to judge, I guess, the sort of playing styles across the two. I mean, certainly from our point of view, as I say, I think we've been trying out sort of 3 at the back and the two wing backs, which I think hasn't worked brilliantly early part of the season, especially against some of the stronger sides. But it just feels like that's clicking into place. So, yeah, I mean, we certainly had, I mean, a real lack of attacking threat, I think, not through want of trying, but it does just seem like that started to creep back into our game, and there's a good understanding between the front players, and defensively, as I say, we're looking solid. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's I think if we can just kind of keep that confidence up, then we've got as I say, you've got to be careful saying easy fixtures, but I think compared to the opening part of the season, between now and Christmas, there is a lot of winnable games for us, or a lot of games we can take points from, and I think potentially if we can keep going in the direction we're going by Christmas, I think realistically anybody in the bottom 12 at some point is going to be flirting with the relegation places. I just think that's the way this season is going to go. So it would just be nice to have a bit of breathing room, because after we jumped from bottom up to 14th, I think last when we beat Wolves last week, and then you can start hearing people saying, that we've got breathing room and the relative comfort, and I'm thinking, it's 3 points off relegation, so I think it's going to be like that all season, and I think obviously Brighton have done well, picked up points, Newcastle are doing well now, but I think every one of those teams is going to be jumping around, in the bottom half of the table. So if we can get to Christmas and have a little bit of breathing room, then I'll be happy with that, really.
And no doubt Cardiff are feeling pretty cock-a-hoop right now. They've beaten Wolves as well, so they're riding high. And Wolves, who we were assured by so many media outlets that were going to take the division by storm, are actually just in a similar position to Brighton and...
Well, I think that also goes to show, doesn't it? It's you can't just see it so many times, don't you? A team just buying a lot of players and not having the time to gel. And I think individually they're probably better players than than a lot of teams have got in the bottom half of the table. But the benefit you've got with Brighton, with Huddersfield, is having a core of players that have played together, and I think that ultimately is as much of an asset as having those more expensive players, or I'd like to think so at least. So I didn't catch that. Did Cardiff play Wolves last night then?
Yeah, it was.
I thought that was today. So okay.
Yeah,
it's such an odd one, isn't it? Because if Huddersfield weren't in the Premier League, I would obviously be rooting for Brighton. I've lived in Brighton for 20 years, and it's really odd that you when you're supporting not a struggling team, but a team that could be fighting relegation this season, you start looking for every other team in the bottom half to lose. So if actually I would have probably liked that Wolves to have got something from that game, but it seems now that all the teams in the bottom half of the table, it
was always going to happen. It happens every year. Everyone writes off the teams who start off badly, and so often it doesn't end up that way. Wolves are now slipping, and Cardiff came back from a goal down as they did against us to win.
And then you've got teams I guess like Southampton, Crystal Palace, who really you would expect this season to be solid mid-table teams, who all of a sudden are they really do. I mean, what they've got, was it one win in 20 or something like that? I think so.
They can't score.
Yeah. Which I'm fine with. Long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So Huddersfield defender Terence Congolo is a fitness doubt because of a leg problem sustained against Wolves.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about that because he went down and there was a bit of a funny moment where he sort of looked stuck to the ground last weekend and couldn't move. But he played on for the rest of the game. But he is a phenomenal defender. That was probably our biggest signing. He obviously was on loan last season from Monaco.
They could do with him, I would have thought, given how they're struggling.
Yeah, do you know, I've not kept an eye on how they're doing, but
badly. Henry just got his first win recently.
I saw there was some pressure on him as
already,
well.
They could do with a resolute defender now.
Well, they can't have him back.
No,
so,
sure.
But I mean, to be honest, he was. You could see he was a cut above. We've got a couple of players in our side that look like they could comfortably move up to a sort of top half of the division team. And he's definitely one of these, a phenomenal defender. So we will miss him if he's not fit.
We got a couple of them too. Forward Laurent Depoitre has a groin problem and will also be assessed. While Chris Lowe, out the Pet Shop Boys, is definitely out with a shoulder injury.
No, he's just playing. He's got a gig.
Yeah. Brighton's record signing Alireza Jahanbakhsh remains sidelined by a hamstring complaint, and Dale Stephens is still absent after that straight red. So we got some celebrity predictions. We always like to look at what the real pundits of the world are saying. We've got Jeff Stelling's got you down for a 1-0 win. Yep. Paul Merson as well. The class of 92, Gary Neville, effectively, also says 1-0. Charlie Nicholas gives us a chance for a 1-1 draw.
Okay.
Mark Lawrenson also gone 1-0 Huddersfield. pretty one-sided predictions. And Dolph Lundgren, has
aka He-Man,
has gone for a 3-2. Ivan Drago 3-2 win.
He's the token doesn't even know what football is celebrity, right?
He was billed as Everton supporter, but that's probably one of those things where he was in Liverpool at some point, and they invited him to a game.
Of course. Well, I mean, I'll fire a question at you. What are your thoughts on today?
Okay, well, we do this thing where I play the game on FIFA on the hardest setting.
Oh, mate, I'm a big FIFA fan.
Right. So I played the game with live form on legendary difficulty last night, and it was all quite. It was plausible until the 83rd minute. We take the lead with Beram Kyle goal in the first half. Fairly soon after, an equaliser, a cross comes in. Shane Duffy shins it into off his knee into the net. Seems quite reasonable. Then the game plays out fairly evenly matched. But then in the last, it all went a bit mad. Huddersfield pressing for the winner. I caught them on the break. Pascal Gross puts us 2-1 up. Then Huddersfield pressing for an equaliser. I catch them on the break. Pascal Gross puts us 3-1 up.
Hang on a minute.
And then with just seconds to go, Huddersfield have given up, and Pascal Gross scores a hat-trick inside 7 minutes. I
think we need to check your settings, mate.
It's on legendary difficulty.
I mean, we're going to have to take your word for that, aren't we? But
I could have DVR'd it. Yes, so completely unfeasible.
Okay, so
Huddersfield won, Brighton 4.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would be surprised. I've
actually gone 2-0 on my predictions. What do you reckon?
I don't know. The only thing I would say is I'm confident we will get a point at least. I mean, a lot of people saying last weekend Wolves were poor, which they were. They're obviously different, but I think we made them play that way, and I think if we can play like we did last week with the home crowd behind us, I fancy us to win.
Yeah.
But that said, they're always tight games, and so it's one of those ones hard to call. I think it's a good time for us to be playing Brighton. We probably, fingers crossed to win. Otherwise, I can see having watched Huddersfield Brighton probably 7 or 8 fixtures in my over the last few seasons, and I think 7 of those have been either 0-0 or 1-1. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was how it ended up.
Yeah. All right, we've also got only a very brief preview because Brighton and Hove Albion also have Crystal Palace, our arch rivals, coming on Tuesday night. Last season's dull 0-0 draw. There was trouble, of course, and Bruno's mural got sadly vandalised, and it still shows the signs of that today. I hope somebody will be watching that on Tuesday. It's another Tuesday night game. I'm not sure what the rationale behind that is. Obviously, we had the two reserve teams play each other in the FA Cup. Brighton ran out 2-1. Last 6 games, it's been 1-2, drawn 2 and lost 2 from Brighton point of view, so very even. Has never been a December draw, if that means anything, between the two. We've won 6 and lost 7. I haven't done the FIFA prediction for that one. I'm trying not to even think about it at this point. I don't really enjoy the local rival.
I mean, it's going to say, well, you're riding the wave of a 4-1 victory, aren't you? So, I mean,
well, exactly,
dash into your next game, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Who's Huddersfield's kind of arch rivals?
What, in the Premier League or it's Leeds?
General.
It's Leeds, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's, as I say, because I'm having lived up there for a little while, and we have obviously had family up there, but because I've lived mainly down on the south coast, it's something that I watch from afar. I mean, I think, football rivalries are odd at best, aren't they? I mean, and obviously I don't get involved in a lot of that kind of banter, but it's Leeds being the big one, really. There seems to be a bit of a
The good thing is about hating Leeds, in inverted commas, is that you've got literally everyone else in football on your side as well.
You see, I'm not going to get involved in these conversations. I mean, it does seem there's a common thread there, but I mean, I think obviously those things are a lot more pronounced, aren't they? If you live in the area and you're encountering rival fans, as I say, as a Huddersfield fan living in Worthing.
Just remember, this show isn't only local; it goes out on the internet. So
that is true.
I won't be going to Leeds anytime.
Yeah, I was going to say, cancel your long city break weekend then, eh?
We must check in on the women. It's been another tough afternoon for them against Arsenal. Arsenal 4, Brighton and Hove Albion 1. Arsenal had won every game this season coming into this game, though. Ini Umatong gave Albion the lead, her first goal in the top flight. They should have been 2 up when Williams headed just wide with a gaping net in front of her, but a mistake at the back gifted Arsenal the opportunity to get back into the game. And 10 minutes later, Bloodworth headed Arsenal into the lead. Donk made it 3 before half-time, and Mead, not Raphael Mead presumably, the former Arsenal and Albion striker from the 80s and 90s, completed the scoring with 10 minutes to go to condemn Albion to their second successive 4-1 defeat. Next up, West Ham at home on Sunday, 2 p.m. kickoff. Presumably that's at Crawley if you're around and available. Then we also have Crystal Palace on the Wednesday night. Men and women back-to-back fixtures against the arch rivals. That's in the Continental Cup. Again at home, 7:45 Wednesday. The under-23s, this was an exciting one. Saw Liam Rosenior excitedly tweeting about this and his latest appearances on Sky. The under-23s came back from 2-0 down to beat Swansea away 3-2. 2 goals in as many minutes from none other than our goal machine, Irishman Aaron Connolly. Got the scores level, 74th and 76 minutes. Gio Queiroz, or Jokers as we're calling him, then hit the bar 3 minutes later before grabbing a 90th minute winner. Ben White provided the assist for all 3 goals. We're now 3rd in the league, in the Premier League 2, 4 points off of first place Derby. So that's all very good. We don't play again until a week on Monday at home to Leicester. The non-league roundup. Bostik Premier League. White Hawk were in 22nd, drew 0-0 with Folkestone and Victor on Tuesday night, but it was a much improved performance from the Hawks and were scratching their heads wondering how they didn't win the game. They've now slipped to bottom of the table. Today they're at home to AFC Hornchurch. Lewis are in 9th, drew 2-2 with Hemel Hempstead in the FA Trophy on Saturday after being 2 down. In the Tuesday night replay, they again scored twice, but Hemel grabbed 3 to seal a place in the next round. Today they host Leatherhead, and on Wednesday they're at home to Corinthian Casuals. Worthing in 4th are out of the FA Trophy, losing 2-1 to Bedford Town. They were in total control before a sending off on the stroke of half-time. The game against Brightlingsea Regent, we love that name, was called off on Tuesday night. They hosted Bishop's Stortford today and then Merstham on Tuesday night in the Velocity Trophy. Bognor Regis Town in 5th came back from 2 down as well to beat 3 Bridges 3-2 in the Sussex Senior Cup. They travel to Harlow today and on Tuesday at home to Enfield. Burgess Hill Town in 20th are back in the relegation zone following a 3-0 defeat to Corinthian Casuals. They are through to the next round of the Velocity following a 2-0 win away at Hythe and are at home to Carshalton Athletic. Meanwhile, in the Southern Combination, Saltdean are in 5th. They lost 2-1 away at rivals New Haven and travel to Lingfield today. Peacehaven and Telscombe beat Shoreham 4-1 at home in 9th. We've got a little canine visitor in the studio. They are away. Peacehaven and Telscombe beat Shoreham 4-1 at home, away at East Preston today. Lancing on the 13th. In 13th, lost 3-0 at home to AFC Uckfield, away at Crawley, down Gatwick today. And Shoreham in 14th. Well, you've already heard about Shoreham. They lost 4-1 to Peacehaven and Telscombe. Don't forget you can catch up with all the best highlights of Sussex football on YouTube. Search the Sussex Football Show with new shows available every Monday. Right. So...
A lot of 4-1s in there.
Yes.
There's a bit of a theme.
Yeah, just like my victory over Huddersfield. Yeah. So we're going to play out today with a track from my guest, Flevens.
Thank you.
What would you like to tell us about this piece we're going to hear from you?
Well, it depends on what you're going to play.
We're going to play It Just Goes.
Okay, yeah, this is my new single, came out last week on the Mighty Jalapeno Records and is available for download in all good places now.
Wow, that is slick. All right, so we'll leave you with this one from Flevens. Thanks again.
Cheers, mate. Nice to be here.
My name's Leon, and we'll leave you with this. It Just Goes.